Did I mark a quiz last class too? Because we have a new student. I can't remember if you learned this terrible joke. Everybody, who's my favorite student? Anne Serkey, because she gets everything right. Think about it. It's a dumb joke. Marco can explain it to you. A good way to get the hang of this is to follow the 4 steps that I gave you at the end of our circuitry lesson. I said the first thing I always labeled downhill. Now, I noticed they did put arrows on there on this question for me, but I'll do that anyhow.
How did you come up with it?
What, Anne Serkey? I stole that. My best material is stolen from other teachers.
Oh.
Yeah. Jimmy just wanted that now. We're back. I always try, step 2, I told you, I try and find total current leaving the battery. Because if I can find the total current leaving the battery, which must be the total current of the circuit, the question's going to fall apart. You know what? Leaving here is 12 amps. Good. So now I'm going to walk along. Do they need a current there? How many amps, by the way, are going through this particular resistor? It's got to be 12 because there was no split ups or rejoins, no junctions. Also 12 amps. Also 12 amps. Oh, how many amps right there? Okay, so I'm going to make a little note there. 12 amps. I know there's 12 amps here. I know there's 12 amps here. I know there's 12 amps here, which means, do I know 2 things? Then I know 4 things. Do I know 2 things? Then I know 4 things. Do I know 2 things? I can find everything that they need me to find then. And the 2 equations I'm going to use are V equals I times R equals V over I equals V over R, and power equals V times I, all the different versions. So let's see, they want me to find the voltage drop. It's going to be I times R. It's going to be 12 times 5, 60 volts. How many watts of power? It's going to be 60 times 12, 720? Yes. Come on. Let's be a little more careful, Mr. Duke. 720 watts. I strongly encourage you, don't forget to put units on. In fact, I will take a half mark if you don't put units on. The reason is later on you'll look at the numbers and you won't remember which one is power, which one is ohms, you'll get them all mixed up. Okay. I know 2 things, so I know the voltage is going to be I, 12 times 8. 12 times 8 is 84? Or 96? 96. So this is a 96 volt resistor. How much power? It's going to be 96 times 12, I, V times I. Well, 100 times 12 would be 1200. 96 times 12, it's going to be 1200. Take away 40. Is it 1,104? Or am I way off? 52. And that's power is measured in watts. Okay? Oh, and 1 mark for each blank. You'll notice I didn't give you any marks for finding current, even though I kind of needed to find the current in order to do this. That's okay. Voltage drop here, it's going to be V times R. This is 120 volts. And it's going to be 120 times 12, 1,440 watts. Is that correct? Yeah. What's the only other blank I need to get? How big the battery is. How am I going to figure that out? The 4th step, which is ski. So, Cleo, my friend, how many volts are in the battery? How many volts are in the battery?
Oh, you don't know.
I don't know. Ski with me. How many volts do I lose there?
60.
Remember that? How many volts do I lose there?
Yep.
96. Remember that? How many volts do I lose there?
12. Oh, 120.
Remember that? How can I figure out how many volts this battery, what would I type into my calculator?
60.
Yep.
60 minus 96.
Well, if I go 60...
Oh, no. Say, plus.
Yes, good. No, because we subtracted to find the missing resistors if we knew the chairlift. Here, we're trying to find the chairlift. We're going to have to add them all up. Plus...
120.
How big must this battery be? This is a pretty big battery, 276 volts. So 8 marks for that, 1 mark for each blank. Now the only problem with this, unfortunately, is if, for example, you got this wrong. Well, that would have dominoed into getting that. Would have cost you 2 marks, but that's okay. With quiz corrections, I've told you, you can reprint any take-home quiz and redo your corrections and get full marks still. Well done. Number 2, 1 mark. How many amps right here? Jimmy, how many amps right here?
Oh, we don't know yet.
How many amps right here? We have enough to figure it out. So you ready? Downhill, downhill, downhill. Remember the current rule? Splits up. How many amps right there?
25.
How many amps right there?
10.
How many amps must be there?
5.
Why?
Because
I have 40 coming in.
40,
So I-
40 minus 30
Yep.
times 5.
Okay. Now, this is a nice circuit. I would have no problem giving you the same circuit on the test, but also if I gave you the resistors there, there, and there, now you can also figure out all the different voltages. You can figure out how many volts the battery needs to be, stuff like that. 1 mark for that. Turn the page. 3 marks. Here we go. Mara, we're going to label downhill, right? Say right. And then this is almost the same circuit that Jimmy and I did. In fact, it really is the same circuit that Jimmy and I did. I've just added some more stuff. I took the same picture. So, do I know total current leaving the battery? That's step 2. So this question's going to fall apart. I have confidence that it will. I'll do some work, but as soon as I know that, that's kind of my, okay, this is all going to fall apart. How many amps went this way? I don't know. How many amps went this way? I don't know. How many amps went this way? I don't know. Dope. Are there any resistors with 2 things? Do I know 2 things there? Do I know 2 things there? Do I know 2 things there? Are there any resistors with 2 things? Okay, so now that's the 3rd thing I was always looking for. 4th step, I ski. So, ski with me, Mara. How many volts do I start with? If I go down this hill, does that get me to the bottom? And what I mean by that is, am I able to arrive right there? Yes. That's meant to be a Captain Obvious. Does that get me to the bottom? Yeah. Okay. So, how many volts did I start with? How many volts must I have lost there if that got me to the bottom? Yep. They didn't ask me for that, but I need to fill that in because now, do I know 2 things? I know 3 things. This one I think you can do in your head. How can I get the current if I know the voltage and the resistance? Which equation am I going to use? It's on your yellow sheet. Don't be looking up. It's on your yellow sheet. So I know voltage. I know V. I know R. How can I find I? Find the one that has the I by itself. Loud and proud with confidence in your voice. What's V? What's R? How many amps down this? Yeah, which means I made up a bad circuit. Because how many amps are left over for everything else? How many amps are left over for everything else? Well, 0 and 0. So if you put 0 amps there and 0 amps there, I'll give you 3 out of 3. You know what my problem is? This battery isn't big enough. Or I needed to have a higher current leaving the battery, one or the other. I was making up numbers in my head, and I didn't make up good numbers. So for now, we're going to go 6, 0, and 0. Or if you did it this way, let me see, you would also have 18 volts. If you went 18 volts and you said this is 9 amps and this is 3 amps, I'd also give you marks for that. But clearly this question needs to be tossed, and I need to fix this. This is what happens when I make up questions before I do answer keys. Well done, because that was a weird one. So give yourself 3 marks for any of those answers, going 6, 0, and 0, or 6, 9, and 3. So really what I need to do is I need to change this number here and that number there. How many amps are actually flowing out of this battery? 6, 9, and 3. I need to change that to 18 amps. Number 4. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Brooklyn, let's label this downhill, right? Okay. Current, I think this one will work. Brooklyn, how many amps do I have right here, my angel? Right here that we split up, how many amps went this way? So how many amps must have gone this way? Good. Do I know 2 things on this resistor? Say no. Do I know two things on this resistor? Say no. So now we go to the skiing trick. What's the skiing trick? There's two ski runs I can do. I can do that one. I can do that one. In either of those, I have to lose how many volts? How many volts am I gaining? I've got to lose 12 in each one. So going down this one, oh, how many volts must I lose right there, Brooklyn? How many volts am I gaining? How many volts am I gaining? How many volts do I lose there if that gets me to the bottom? Yep. Yep. So 12 volts, 1 mark. Now I know two things. R is V over I. It's 12 divided by 6, 2 amps, Mr. Duick. Ohms is 1 mark. Now, Brooklyn, let's ski this run here. How many volts am I gaining? How many volts must I lose going through there? And again, this bugs kids because students say, Mr. Duick, that's 24 volts. Not in any one path. In any one path, it's 12 volts. In any one ski run, it's 12 volts. Brooklyn, do I know two things? Then I know three things. The current is going to be V divided by, the resistance is going to be V divided by I, 6 ohms. And the power is going to be V times I. Is it 24 watts?
Yeah.
1 mark for each of those. That one worked out better. You good, David? Good. Next page over. David, you ready? What's the first thing I'm going to do? Downhill. Downhill. Okay. David, do I know the current leaving? Second thing I'm going to do is try and find the total current. Do I know the current leaving the battery? Say no. Okay, follow me, follow me. How many amps went this way? How many amps went this way? How many amps rejoined right there then? How many amps right here? How many amps right here? How many amps right here? Now I know the total current. This question's going to fall apart. 1 mark for that. Okay. Step 3 is any resistors where there's two things. You know what? I know two things, two pieces of information on that guy, which means I can figure everything else. How can I find the voltage? Well, voltage is I times R. Right here, what's I, David? What's R, David? What's 1 times 6 in your head? So this must be 6 volts. Has to be. Okay? Well done. Do I know two things in this resistor, David? Say no. Do I know two things here? Say no. So now we're going to use the final trick is the ski trick. So I'm going to ski either this one. Sure, let's ski this one. How many volts am I gaining, David, leaving the chairlift? Go through there. I don't know. Does that get me to the bottom? So how many volts must I have lost in this resistor here? Well done. Do I know two things now? Say yes. Then okay. It's going to be R is V over I, 18 divided by 3. This has got to be a 6 ohm resistor. Let's ski this run. How many volts am I gaining? How many volts do I lose here? Leaving how many? Yep. Oh, how many volts must I lose in that last hill if that gets me to the bottom? Yep. Oh, and how many amps going through this top resistor right here? How many amps going through here? Still, hey, there you go. So R is going to be V divided by I. Folks, is this a 12 ohm resistor? Okay, 7 marks. Last one. Ooh, this has some teeth. Okay, I better label downhill. This one looks weird. That's downhill, 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 downhill. Okay. Okay. Anybody want to give me a suggestion on how I'd handle this one? Sorry? The volts? Well, I don't know my battery, so I'm kind of, I may come to that, but if I don't know the chairlift or the battery, that's a pretty big stumbling block to begin with. I think I'm going to try current first. So how many amps right here, Halia? How many amps went this way? 5? How many amps went this way?
All 4.
How many amps?
Yeah, 1.
Ah. Okay. Cool. I know 2 things here, so I can figure out voltage. It's going to be 15 volts, and then it's going to be 15 times 5, 75 watts. David? Thank you. I know 2 things here, so it's going to be, 45? Now that helps because now if I ski this run, Halia, how many volts do I lose in this resistor? How many volts do I lose in this resistor? And that gets me back to the bottom of the chairlift. It's got to be 60 volts battery. Has to be. Okay, what can I figure out over here? Well, if I ski the outer run, I got 60 minus 15 minus mystery V. That gets me to 0. I think this is also 45 volts. The resistance is 45 divided by 4. Yeesh. It's going to be 22.5 divided by 2, 11.2? 11.25. It's 11.3 if you round off properly. And power is going to be V times I, 45 times 4, 180? So sorry for that glitchy question. I think it was number 3. But can you please give yourself a score out of 33? Holy smokes, 33, please.